My name is Stella. My boss forced me to sign a false audit to put my entire career I've worked and built for so many years in jeopardy, but he didn't see what was coming after all. He thought he could use me as a pawn in his own trickery games. It all began when I entered my boss' office, Julian by name. The tension in Julian Croft's office was so thick, I felt like I could barely breathe. His office was on the top floor, all sleek glass and steel, showing off the whole city below. Right now, it feels more like a cage. Stella, stood stiffly before his massive mahogany desk. On his huge computer screen was the final, devastating audit for Titan Industries. I knew the numbers were fake. They were wildly inflated to make the company look much richer than it truly was. Julian, my powerful boss at Axiom Financial, tapped a long, manicured finger on the screen. "Sign it, Stella," he commanded, the warmth in his voice completely gone, replaced by a cold edge of authority. I pushed back, refusing the order. I told him this was completely unethical and worse, it was a major crime. I pointed out the serious legal trouble we would all face if we signed a lie. Julian's famous, easy charm evaporated instantly. His face became a hard, unforgiving mask. He threatened loudly to fire my entire team, every single person I cared about, right then. He also promised to personally blacklist my name throughout the entire finance industry, making sure I would never work again. Faced with this impossible, terrible choice, my team's future or my own honesty, I felt defeated. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the pen, but I had to do it. With deep shame and a sudden sharp pain in my chest, I signed the fraudulent document, knowing I had just sold a piece of my soul to save my staff. I returned to my desk, the heavy silence in my own office feeling like a massive, lead blanket pressing down on me. I spent the next hour just staring blankly at the computer screen, the shame of my action making my stomach hurt. I kept repeating to myself that I did it to save the careers of others. Then, the next, even colder blow landed. A new email from Julian arrived, its subject line simply reading, "Confidential." When I opened it, the few, simple words hit me with the force of a punch. The email formally stated, "Per our discussion, this confirms your approval of the Titan audit. File accordingly." It was a completely cynical, professional move, a dirty trick designed to cover your back, CYA, and make sure I was fully and completely implicated in the fraud. He was creating a paper trail to show I was the one who approved the fake numbers. The cold, heartless, and calculated nature of his betrayal, the way he rushed to ensure my complete ruin just to save himself, did not break me this time. Instead, it lit a sharp, focused fire deep inside me. My despair was now gone, replaced by a fierce, quiet resolve. He would not ruin me. I stared at Julian's self-serving email, reading his calculated words many times. The initial feeling of being a victim completely hardened into a rock-solid, dangerous resolve. He had used his power to force me, and now I would use his own email to destroy his entire world. I clicked the reply button, and my fingers felt steady and purposeful. I remembered the secret, confidential whistleblower email address for the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. I knew this address was meant for people reporting financial crimes safely and anonymously. I quickly, carefully, and secretly typed that hidden protective address into the BCC, blind carbon copy, line. Julian would never see it, and no one would know. My message back to Julian had to be simple and completely innocent. It read, "Confirmed, Julian. Filed as per your directive." I took one slow, deep, careful breath, the sound loud in the quiet office, and then I clicked the send button. With that single, silent, secret click, the war against my wicked boss was officially declared. I had just used his tool of betrayal to begin his complete downfall. The moment that small electronic message left my computer and sped across the network, a wave of cold, powerful fear gripped me, making my heart pound hard against my ribs. The brief moment of brave courage vanished instantly, replaced by sheer, paralyzing panic. I gripped the sides of my desk, trying to stay still. I immediately started asking myself scary questions. What if Julian's smart, expensive IT team found the trace of the SEC address on my machine? What if the SEC received millions of emails and simply ignored mine, thinking it was a crank message? What if I was arrested before the investigation even started? I knew that my single, desperate act of sending the email was not enough to save me. This was only the very first move in a long, dangerous, deadly game. I realized I needed to act fast, constantly protecting myself and building a massive, completely undeniable arsenal of evidence. My fear quickly sharpened into a cold, clear, focused energy that demanded immediate action and careful, silent preparation. I had to become a master planner. I moved quickly and quietly, driven by the intense need for survival. I accessed a hidden, encrypted cloud drive I had maintained for years, just for professional caution. I had named this safe space my insurance file. My hands, though still slightly cool, were now perfectly steady as I began the process of gathering and securing the evidence. I uploaded the final, signed version of the fraudulent Titan audit document. Next, I uploaded the short, terrible, 10-second screen recording I had secretly captured on my phone, showing my distress and the exact time I signed the false document. This proved I was forced. Most importantly, I uploaded Julian's damning, confidential approval email, the one that proved he commanded the fraud. I carefully checked every single file, ensuring they were clearly timestamped and had secure, untraceable metadata. This heavily encrypted file, stored far away from Axiom's control on a safe, private server, was now my life raft and my most powerful weapon against Julian and his power. My escape plan demanded more than just hiding evidence. It needed a completely safe, clean way out of the company. I drove far away, to a different town, and used only cash to buy a simple, completely untraceable burner phone. I would never use this phone near Axiom or my home network. Using this secret phone and a secure, encrypted connection, I created a new, completely anonymous professional profile online. I chose the powerful, strong name Aletheia, which in ancient Greek means unveiling the truth, a name that perfectly matched my new, secret purpose. My goal was not to expose myself, but to find a safe harbor. I began subtly and expertly engaging with Veritas Capital. Veritas was the largest, most respected, and most ethical rival to Axiom Financial. I posted deeply knowledgeable, high-level comments about financial ethics and industry trends, positioning Aletheia as a true expert and a source of wisdom. I was quietly building my reputation, preparing to show Veritas that I possessed highly valuable, unique inside knowledge about their main rival, Axiom. The silence after I sent the email was agonizing, lasting for weeks and weeks, but then the first sign of movement appeared. The SEC's investigation began slowly and quietly, exactly as I had hoped it would. Using my vague email as a starting point, Axiom Financial received a vague, formal, short inquiry about Titan Industries' financials. It was a simple, short request for minor clarification on a small, hidden footnote in the report. Julian, full of his usual self-confidence and arrogance, immediately dismissed the request. He told the board of directors it was merely a routine check, or just boring administrative paperwork, that would soon go away. He was completely blinded by his own power and his belief that he was above the law. But I, Stella, watched his careless dismissal with a cold, focused certainty, recognizing the first, subtle tremor of the coming, massive earthquake. I knew the SEC had received my message and was now carefully gathering more information. Julian's arrogance was a powerful shield that was now also his biggest weakness. It was the right time to increase the pressure and prove my immense value to Veritas. I contacted Veritas Capital again, using my powerful, anonymous persona, Aletheia. I composed a cryptic, short message and sent it directly to Alastair Thorne, the highly respected CEO of Veritas. The message strongly hinted at deep, systemic ethical rot and massive corporate corruption at Axiom, and mentioned a specific, hidden, massive financial liability related to the fraudulent Titan Industries audit. I made sure the message was vague enough that Julian could not trace it, but specific enough to instantly activate Alastair's professional alarm bells and intense curiosity. I wrote that Axiom was a rotten fruit, ready to fall. I knew that Julian and Axiom were now completely vulnerable to a powerful, aggressive rival willing to exploit their weaknesses, and I was holding the complete, detailed map to all their deepest, darkest financial secrets. This was my main bait, and I waited for Veritas to take a bite. The response came quickly, but it was appropriately cautious and professional. The head of compliance at Veritas, a smart, skeptical man named Gannon, replied to Alethia's anonymous message. He was certainly intrigued by the specific, complex claims I was making, but was deeply skeptical of any source that refused to reveal their true name. He challenged me immediately, demanding verifiable, real-world proof of my insider status. This was exactly the test I had prepared for. I knew I could not reveal the main, protected documents yet. Instead, Stella, operating as Alethea, provided a single verifiable, non-public piece of specific, hidden data. A small, hidden transaction detail from the Titan audit that was only known internally by a handful of people in Julian's private office. Gannon's team ran the transaction detail immediately. It checked out completely, perfectly, and secretly. They were instantly convinced that Alethea was a genuine, credible, and very powerful insider who knew everything. They had completely taken the hook, and the door to my powerful, safe escape route at Veritas Capital was now slowly opening wide for me. The next step was a highly secure, high-stakes phone conversation. I arranged a completely secure, voice-disguised call with Alistair Thorne, the CEO of Veritas, and her chief legal counsel. My voice was calm, clear, and projected immediate authority, using cold, hard, undisputed financial facts and figures. I did not waste any time complaining about Julian, or playing the part of a sad, fired victim. Instead, I confidently demonstrated my profound, encyclopedic knowledge of Axiom's terrible accounting flaws, their structural organizational weaknesses, and their future inevitable strategic failures. I presented myself not as a person looking for pity or a job, but as a completely strategic, ruthless asset who knew exactly how to dismantle their chief rival, brick by brick. Alistair listened intently, completely fascinated by my deep insights and my cold, clear, powerful approach. She quickly realized that I had the strategic mind they desperately needed to move aggressively against Axiom, and I was the key to their complete victory in the market. Alistair Thorne was completely convinced by my courage, my professional demeanor, and my sharp intellect. The day after the successful call, Veritas offered me a high-level director position in their newly created Strategic Risk Assessment division. The incredibly generous offer, which included a massive signing bonus, was conditional only on my providing a full, detailed debriefing of everything I knew about Axiom's dark secrets. I immediately accepted the powerful offer, securing my safe and perfect escape route from Axiom and Julian's impending ruin. I quietly submitted my formal resignation from Axiom, giving only a very short, 1-week notice, which Julian was too distracted and stressed to even notice. My former team, whose jobs I had saved, cheered my quick departure, believing I was simply moving on to a better life. I knew I was not just moving on. I was moving into a position of immense power, where I could finally fight back against Julian openly and legally, from a position of strength. As I worked my notice, the quiet whispers of the SEC inquiry grew louder, more frantic, and more frequent within the walls of Axiom. The atmosphere became heavy with fear, suspicion, and mounting panic. Julian, unable to find the source of the leak, and feeling the intense pressure of the board, started becoming visibly paranoid and anxious. He snapped angrily at staff members constantly, yelling in the hallways, and held frantic late-night, closed-door meetings with his expensive legal team. He completely convinced himself that the entire problem was a powerful competitor leaking fake, damaging information to the SEC to destroy the company's stock. He began to suspect everyone on the entire board and every single staff member still working there, except for me, the quiet, loyal analyst who had just resigned. Julian's arrogance, which had made him so powerful and successful, was now his greatest weakness, completely blinding him to the true, quiet, internal source of the extreme danger. Before my last day at Axiom, I executed a subtle, powerful, ethical strike that further destabilized Julian's team, and showed my loyalty to the honest staff. I quietly and secretly encouraged 2 of Axiom's most ethical and skilled junior analysts, people I knew deeply hated the corrupt environment, to apply immediately for positions at Veritas. I sent them anonymous, well-written emails praising Veritas's ethical culture and listing the open, high-paying positions. They were quickly and happily poached by Veritas, impressed by the ethical culture and the promise of a better, honest future. This created a sudden, noticeable, and critical brain drain in Julian's key financial department. Key, sensitive work stalled completely, and his remaining, exhausted team was completely demoralized by the sudden loss of talent. This talent drain caused a rapid ripple effect of incompetence and dangerous delays, further setting up Axiom for a massive public fall, and leaving Julian completely exposed and without any competent support. The small, quiet SEC inquiry suddenly and violently escalated to a massive, full-scale formal investigation. Axiom's board of directors was immediately notified by the SEC itself, causing a massive, unmanageable internal panic among the company's highest leaders. The board immediately demanded clear answers, total transparency, and the immediate resignation of Julian. Julian was now completely in full, absolute panic mode. His former, overconfident, easy arrogance was totally replaced by visible, intense fear and shaking terror. He finally realized this was not just a competitor's attack. This was a serious, deadly, federal threat to his entire company and his personal freedom. He desperately tried to control the rising panic, shouting commands that no one followed, but the fear was now permanently etched on his pale face and in his frantic, daily actions. The pressure cooker was officially turned up to the highest level, and Julian was now starting to boil and completely break under the intense heat and scrutiny. Julian, now correctly suspecting a real insider leak after the SEC escalation, hired a powerful, extremely expensive forensic IT firm to secretly and immediately investigate all active and recently departed employees, including me. I learned from my former, still loyal contacts that I, Stella, was a key person of interest in their sweeping internal investigation. The stakes were now terrifyingly high. I knew the IT firm would scrutinize every single part of my work history, all my emails, and every bit of my computer activity, looking for the smallest mistake. I realized I must now be absolutely flawless, not just in my planning, but in my behavior. I had to appear completely clean, innocent, and completely loyal to their intensive digital investigation. I deleted every single trace of my anonymous identity, Aletheia, and scrubbed my personal computer completely clean, leaving only my meticulously clean work-related files behind. My entire plan depended on me becoming a digital ghost, and acting the part of the perfect, loyal, innocent human employee. The forensic IT investigators spent days meticulously scrutinizing my old work computer, checking every log file, every outgoing email, and every document I had ever touched. Finding absolutely nothing suspicious, my computer was perfectly clean. They requested a final, formal exit interview with me, Stella, the recently resigned director. I agreed immediately and cheerfully to meet them at a coffee shop far from the office. I played the part of a loyal, hardworking, and completely innocent employee perfectly. I expressed deep, sincere concern about the baseless rumors and the SEC's unexpected interest in the company. I told them that I was sad to leave Axiom but wished Julian and the entire company well in their struggle. I spoke of Julian with feigned respect, calling him my mentor and a good, but perhaps too trusting man. The IT firm concluded I was simply a professional, honest analyst who was overworked and likely a victim of the internal chaos. My performance was convincing, and they quickly ruled me out as the powerful leak source. Even though I was now safely working at Veritas, I knew Julian needed one last, devastating push toward the edge of complete ruin to guarantee his arrest. I executed the masterstroke I had saved for the perfect, final moment. I anonymously leaked a key, final piece of evidence that I had secretly stored in my insurance file. A crystal clear, damning audio recording of Julian pressuring another junior analyst from a year ago to falsify key expense reports. The recording was irrefutable, proving a long, consistent, and documented pattern of professional misconduct, not a one-time error. I leaked this recording directly and secretly to the lead SEC investigator. This single act moved the case from simple financial fraud to systemic, repeated corporate corruption, guaranteeing Julian's immediate arrest and criminal charges. The timing was absolutely perfect, hitting the SEC just as they were ready to file their criminal case. This was the final nail in his coffin. The consequences of the leaked recording were immediate, violent, and completely catastrophic. SEC agents, armed with powerful, surprise search warrants, suddenly and violently raided the massive, glass headquarters of Axiom Financial. They seized hard drives, office computers, and mountains of paper files, effectively shutting down the entire company's core operations. The devastating news immediately broke on all the major financial news networks, showing shocking, repeated images of federal agents carrying sealed boxes of evidence out of Julian's now empty office. The entire company was thrown into complete, unmanageable chaos. Employees were sent home. The stock trading was instantly halted, and Axiom Financial, Julian's entire proud creation, was completely destroyed overnight. The sight of the downfall, broadcast live on the television news, was a cold, powerful vindication of my difficult and courageous decision. I watched it all from my new, safe office. In a frantic, chaotic emergency board meeting held at a secret location off-site, Julian made one final, desperate, and foolish attempt to save his reputation and his skin. He attempted one last time to throw me, Stella, completely under the bus. He claimed loudly to the board that I had acted entirely alone, that I was a rogue employee who had secretly falsified the Titan audit documents after hours, and that he was completely unaware of the fraud. He yelled that he was a victim of my malice. The board, however, was immediately presented with the initial, powerful evidence I had provided to the SEC, including the confidential email where he had specifically ordered me to file the fraudulent report. His pathetic attempt to lie was instantly shut down by his own cold, written words, which I had secretly saved. The board members stared at him with pure contempt, knowing he was a desperate, ruined liar trying to save his miserable skin. The very next morning, I walked calmly into Julian's now dim, quiet office at Axiom, before his official suspension was formally delivered, and quietly handed him my formal resignation letter. My short notice period was over, and I was officially leaving. His face was pale and drawn, his eyes wide and full of pure, cold terror. He knew his world was collapsing. "I'm leaving for a new, exciting opportunity, Julian," I said, my voice completely steady and even, devoid of any anger or triumph. I did not mention Veritas Capital, or the massive SEC investigation he was facing. The look of slow dawning, terrifying realization on his face. The moment he finally understood that the quiet, loyal analyst he had so ruthlessly betrayed was the one who had successfully brought the entire federal government down on his company, was my first, powerful taste of complete and total victory. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out, only a dry, pathetic croak of failure and defeat. A few hours later that same night, a desperate, completely broken Julian showed up unannounced and uninvited at my new, quiet apartment door. He was a complete wreck, looking disheveled and hopeless, his expensive suit wrinkled and dirty from his frantic day. He pleaded with me loudly, his voice a pathetic, broken whisper filled with self-pity. "Stella, you have to testify for me in court. Please. Tell them I was completely out of the loop. Tell them I trusted you and you messed up. You know how I am. I didn't mean for this disaster to happen." He begged loudly, trying one last time to use his old, now worthless charm. He was seeking pity, a final, undeserved lifeline to drag him out of the grave he had personally dug for himself. He kept talking, admitting his crimes and his knowledge with every desperate word he spoke. I smiled calmly, a slow, quiet, cold smile that held no warmth whatsoever, and let him inside my safe, clean apartment. I gave him a small, cruel sliver of false hope, saying I would consider helping him, making him believe I was still loyal to my former mentor. All the while, my new burner phone, hidden discreetly beneath a throw pillow on the couch, was secretly recording every single word of his desperate, self-incriminating pleas. He fully admitted the fraud, he admitted knowing the figures were wrong, and he admitted ordering me to sign the documents to protect his own career. His complete, panicked confession was solid gold. I listened patiently, letting him talk himself deeper and deeper into legal trouble, absorbing the satisfaction of his complete downfall and utter ruin. He finally left, completely convinced I might actually save him from prison. The ultimate, final showdown arrived at the official Axiom board meeting, a few days later, where Julian was fighting desperately to avoid immediate termination. The entire boardroom was quiet and full of intense tension, with tired, powerful board members looking only at their hands. The heavy oak door opened slowly, and I walked in again, this time not as a sad, former employee or a powerless victim, but as an official, powerful director of Veritas Capital, accompanying their lead legal team. The entire board, including Julian, stared at me with shock and complete, terrified horror, realizing I was not just escaping his corruption. I was now part of the powerful rival coming to acquire the few remaining, ruined pieces of his company. My appearance was the final, devastating surprise he would ever receive from me. I stood at the head of the boardroom table, facing the silent board and a defeated Julian. I did not waste time with insults or petty accusations. I first played the secret, powerful recording of Julian begging me to lie, his desperate, miserable voice filling the silent room, showing his complete lack of character and integrity. Then I systematically presented all my evidence. The initial fraudulent audit, his CYA email, the hidden notes on the ethical breaches, and the full recording of his recent confession where he admitted everything. My voice was steady, calm, and spoke only cold, undeniable facts and dates. Julian did not even try to speak or defend himself. He simply slumped completely in his chair, defeated by his own documented crimes and complete lack of honesty. His entire life was over. The board immediately voted unanimously. Julian was officially fired on the spot for gross misconduct and immediately escorted from the building by security guards, humiliated and publicly ruined in front of his peers. The SEC, armed with my new, final confession recording, immediately filed severe civil and criminal charges against him for fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. Axiom stock plummeted to nearly nothing, becoming almost worthless, and Veritas Capital, using my critical inside knowledge of the company's real value, quickly began acquisition talks to buy the few remaining, valuable assets for a cheap price. My revenge was complete, perfectly timed and completely legal, built entirely on the truth and his own wicked, greedy actions. I sat quietly in my new, sunlit, beautiful corner office at Veritas Capital a week later. I felt a quiet, powerful peace settle over me, a feeling of deep satisfaction, not a wild feeling of glee or celebration. The office was quiet, clean, and completely ethical, a wonderful contrast to the panic and darkness at Axiom. I had successfully cleared the names of all my former, honest team members, giving them powerful, written testimonies that secured their immunity from any prosecution. I had ensured that the good, honest people at Axiom were protected, and that only the criminal, Julian, faced the full consequences of his greedy actions. I realized I was not just a whistleblower. I was an ethical leader, and I had successfully built my new, powerful career on a true foundation of honesty and raw courage. A few months passed quietly. I received a pathetic handwritten letter from Julian, sent from a new, low-cost address far away. He was officially facing total bankruptcy and a long prison sentence. He wrote, not with anger or hostility, but with weak self-pity and desperate regret, asking if I would serve as a kind character witness for him during his sentencing hearing. He claimed I was the only person who truly knew his good side and could explain his actions. I reread the letter slowly, remembering the intense pain, the sleepless nights, and the crushing fear he had put me through just 1 year ago. The paper felt like trash in my hands. I did not reply to his desperate letter. His fate was entirely his own doing, and I refused to give him a final, undeserved lifeline to avoid the consequences of his actions. My entire first-year bonus from Veritas Capital was incredibly substantial, a huge reward for my help in the successful acquisition of Axiom. The money was clean, honest, and earned entirely through hard work and courage. I knew exactly what I had to do with it immediately. I donated the entire first-year bonus, a massive sum, to a well-known, respected national nonprofit organization that specifically supports ethical whistleblowers in the financial industry, helping them with legal fees and finding new jobs after they are blacklisted. This massive, generous donation was my final act of closure, a powerful way to use my complete victory to help others find the courage to fight back against corporate corruption and lies. It was a promise to the ethical few. 1 year later, I was giving a massive, celebrated keynote speech at a major financial industry conference, standing alone on a large, brightly lit stage. I was no longer Stella the worried analyst. I was Stella the powerful director, a respected, celebrated figure in the entire financial world. I spoke on the critical importance of ethical leadership, integrity, and radical transparency in the finance industry. My entire painful, difficult journey was now public knowledge, and I was celebrated for my intense courage in helping to successfully clean up the corruption in the industry. The large audience listened with rapt respect, knowing I was one of the only people in the entire room who had truly walked the talk of ethical practice and paid a high, personal price for it. I stood as a symbol of hope. I ended my long, powerful speech, and the entire audience was completely silent, waiting for my final, powerful words. I looked out, completely confident and immensely powerful, directly into the camera lens recording the event. My final words to the audience were clear, strong, and honest. When anyone in a position of power, forces you to sign away your integrity, your principles, or your future, remember this one simple thing always. You hold the pen. And sometimes, the most powerful and meaningful signature you can put down is not the one they viciously demand on their fraudulent document, but the completely damning one you quietly, successfully put on their downfall. I paused for a long, quiet moment, letting the lesson sink into the hearts of everyone listening. And then the entire audience erupted into massive, powerful, and sustained applause as I stepped away from the podium.